Hi everyone, welcome to History on Trial. We're going to be talking about the Moor slave ships that have been identified. Now there are a number of narratives related to the Moors and slavery. One narrative is that individuals identified as Moor were enslaved. There is another narrative that indicates those who are known by Moor were the enslavers. There is yet another narrative that those who were known as Moor were deported or escaped. We're going to be looking at a number of slave ships with the name Moor or some variation thereof. And when you are talking about these slave ships, you only have a few options in terms of these names. Now, in some instances, the names are associated with those who are being carried on the slave ship. So the name of the ship is related to those who are being carried. You also have instances where the name of the slave ship is related to the owner or the place of origin of the slave ship. And then you have instances where the ships are being named as a tribute. And so as we go through some of these names, you can take the opportunity to reflect on why the ships may be going by these names. Does it fit the category of these are the individuals on board, these are the owners, or this is some sort of tribute? And this is a pretty lengthy list, and you can see the variety in terms of names with the Moor root. You see Moorian, and you see Moor, you see Blackamoor, you also see Moorcroft. And another thing that is noteworthy with these ships is that there is significant Dutch involvement with some of these names like Moorian and Moor. And these are ships that were traveling in the 1600s and the 1700s. And so there is quite a bit of diversity in terms of the voyage beginning. So it's not that long list of Bristol and Liverpool as you see with some slave ships. So there is quite a bit of diversity here, and a lot of diversity in terms of where the slave ships are going in Africa and where they are landing in the Americas. And here we see, instead of the significant Dutch involvement, you see significant French involvement in this particular listing. And so in addition to London, you see coming out of France, you see going into different ports in Africa, including Ouida. And you see quite a bit of diversity in terms of the landings in the Americas. And you see, of course, Martinique, you see Haiti, you see Jamaica, but it seems as though this is a very heavy French transport, and so it's coming out of French territory going into French colonies. And this is during the 1700s, with one in the 1800s going into Cuba. That's another interesting dynamic that's also noted. There seems to be significant involvement in terms of slave trading activity in the 1800s going to Spanish colonies in the Americas. Now this one has a different listing of names. So you see 3 Blackamoors, so it's very specific. And then you also have Amaretta multiple times. These are primarily coming out of Bristol with heavy landing in the mainland ports. So you have Charleston, York River, Charleston. This is going on in the 1700s, again during those succession battles. And then you also have a couple of the Blackamoor ones in the 1600s going into Barbados and Jamaica, but there's no indication as to where they are coming from. Here we see some additional Amarettas with Bristol and Charleston and Upper James River. These are all in the 1700s. And you can see that the captains were the same. So these are pretty much the same ships, just going out on different journeys during the same time period. So again, you have the 1700s, and you have quite a bit of Bristol, and then you have variety in terms of the landings in Africa, but again, a very heavy presence of Charleston on this list. Now, there were a couple of intra-American slave trading vessels that also had this name. So you have one with Moor, and then one with Mora, one in the 1600s, and then one in the 1700s. This listing includes different names, and so you can see those with a Spanish influence and those with a French influence. And you can see the ones with the Spanish influence pretty much coming out of Havana and then going to different parts of Africa and then coming back to Havana. Again, you see this relationship between the Spanish colonies and the 1800s, and so this is a very late slave trading. This is after this transatlantic component was supposed to be outlawed. And you also have a heavy French listing down at the bottom, and you see significant Maori. You see coming out of French territory going into different parts of Africa, including Ouida, and then ending up in places like Martinique and Haiti. And again, this is in the 1700s and the 1600s, and those 1700 time frames are significantly related to those battles for succession. Now, this is a very interesting listing of slave ships, because here you have Roy Maori, and that is basically king. And so that is the king. And it's unclear, again, whether this is in relation to who is on board the ship, who is the owner of the ship, or who may be recognized. It might be a tribute. But you have a number of these going into Port-au-Prince, and this is in the 1700s, and it's going every 2 years. And they have a large number of individuals on these ships. In terms of slave ships, these numbers are pretty high. So you have 582, 416, 400, and then you also have a number of Maori slave ships down below that, and then one with St. Maurice, which is interesting. So these are the 1700s and the 1800s. And so again, the question is, what's going on with these ships? Which one of these narratives goes along with the naming of the ships? Are these affiliated with those who are on board the ships? Are these ships named after owners, or are these tributes? And so these are questions that should be answered, because there's a significant number of ships with this Moor, Maori name. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care. See you soon.